You're not faking your freedom, you're building it. So you're speaking from that truth. This is a building block, a stepping stone in the direction you want to go. When you do your sales calls, for example, are you recording them on Zoom or are they non-recorded?
Non-recorded.
Okay, so that's the first step. From now on, record your Zoom calls. You just ask for permission at the beginning of the call. You say, this is going to be a recorded call. Do I have permission to record this call? The person will say, yeah, usually, no problem. And you also frame it as it's a benefit to them. So when the call ends, I'm going to send you the recording. You can review what we discussed in case you got to show your husband or, talk with someone about it. You can just listen to the recording. But then the actual deeper value of recording the call is you can transcribe it and then you can basically put it through some kind of a AI even and have it turn it into a script for you. So now that's more leverage and less work. And then, like I said, if you did 5 to 10 sales calls, you're going to say 80 to 90% of the same thing every call. So then when you upload the transcript to give you the script, it will actually start, like the AI can help you and say, this is your go-to foundational sales call. You always say this, you always ask this. However, in this particular call, this client had this objection, which was different. And here's how you answered it. On this call, it was all the same, except for this circumstance. This is how you handle it. Because as you know, there's always a little bit of a nuance. But if you have an objection like it's too expensive, typically we're going to handle that specific objection the same way. And then just maybe personalizing it to their exact scenario, which is easy to teach once you have examples of it. A lot of the thing about being great in sales and marketing in lots of skills is that you could be great at the skill and not know how to teach it. What AI is now capable of doing is analyzing and observing you do the thing, such as listen to your call or read the transcript and tell you why you're doing it and help you be able to teach it. And that has never been available before. It's a complete game changer because just because you're awesome at something doesn't mean you're a great teacher at that thing.
Right.
So you are probably doing, saying, acting a certain way on calls, unconsciously realizing that it's like a masterful sales skill, but maybe it's just part of who you are if you don't have a background in that particular skill. Because we have certain things that we just pick up on naturally. Like one example is when I was young, before I ever read a sales book, I ever did any form of sales or anything, I was always told by family and friends I was a great storyteller. And I was like, okay, this is just, I didn't know there was more than one way to tell a story. That's just how I told stories. But the thing that made me a great storyteller is because I always felt the need to include the details because I felt like if I didn't include the details, the story would be incomplete. So I would go in thoroughly and like everyone would hang on my every one of my words because they're like, what's next and what happened next and all this kind of stuff. Whereas most people are like, yeah, and then very, very big points only kind of thing, like skip over the minutia. And I never thought about that. Then later, years later, I read sales books and it started talking about storytelling and that facts tell and stories sell. And I was like, no freaking way. So the fact that I have this background in loving to tell stories and people enjoy listening to them is actually like a foundation for sales. Wow. So once again, AI would have been able to tell me this like boom. But back then it was like me piecing these pieces together from
Mhm.
my childhood being like, oh yeah, this is a thing. I had to kind of like crack the code myself. Hopefully that helps you with just because you weren't recording things up until now. That's fine. I'm sure you'll do a bunch of sales calls this week and next week. So you only need 5, 10 of them to really get this initial framework that I'm talking about. And then same thing with the way you write captions on your content and stuff. Maybe you're writing them with a certain framework of how you do your copywriting, how you do your call to actions. Where are you generating your leads from? Is it typically from a written post, a video post? Is it a DM conversation? You know what I mean? There's going to be these similarities and AI can just analyze that for you and be like, oh, well, you've had 10 sales and 8 of them came from written posts. This is your strength. You need to do more of that. And then you can also turn around and teach it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Amazing. So once you start to get these things in place, Then you get to decide, do you want software or technology to be the thing that helps you automate certain things to take the workload off of you? Or do you want a human to do it, like an assistant or a setter or a closer or a video editor or these different valuable skills that you could bring into your team? Is it a matter of increasing quality or is it increasing quantity? Do you want to put out more content or do you just want to put out better content? So you always have to choose between volume or quality. And it's not that hard to basically get help with this because one thing a lot of people miss around getting help or outsourcing or building a team is you have to think about it from the newest person who's partnering with you in the business. The mistake that often people make is they promise the end result of the business in the beginning when you don't start there. So you promise join this business and you get freedom. Freedom is not what you get right away. In fact, you get less freedom because you probably are juggling a job and family and kids and a business. So now you have actually zero freedom because every single waking moment of your day is building a business, but you're building towards freedom. So it's almost like a distinction of this is on a path to freedom, but depending on who you are, it could take 1 to 5 years to get there. So then when I'm watching you build your business and I'm just a looky-loo, I'm not commenting, I'm not engaging, I'm not a lead, I'm just watching, and you start to eventually say, send me a message and someone from my team will respond to you, I'm kind of going, wait a second. For the first little while, it was, I'll message you. Now you start using different language like my team will get back to you. Oh, okay. And then you start saying, you know what? The way I was building my business wasn't sustainable, but I was willing to do whatever it takes. I was doing X amount of calls every day. I was staying up late. I was waking up early. I was doing it on the weekends, which is all true, but I knew it wasn't sustainable and I knew that wasn't creating the freedom that I wanted. So now that I've earned 10, 20, $50,000 a month, I've realized that allocating some of this revenue towards hiring a team is actually going to go buy back my life, buy back my time. And so now I have someone helping me in the DMs because I'm in so much demand. Everybody wants to work with, as you can see, but I only take on 5 to 10 people a month who are the right fit. So I have someone from my team pre-qualify you, make sure you're a good fit. And if you pass that step, then I'm happy to get on a call with you. Fast forward 6 more months, someone from my team will reach out to you, and then someone else from my team will do an introductory call with you. And then at this particular time, you're only actually meeting these individuals once they bought an adjunct and you're doing an onboarding call. Hey, welcome to my team. But quad paperwork is processed. They've already bought. And the first time they meet you like this, face to face on Zoom or in person, they're already in your team. So this is the gradual growth.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at it, once again, I'm the looky-loo on your page. I'm going like, I want that, but didn't have the team for this long. And then she didn't have the second level of her team for that long. And about 2, 3 years later, whatever the case is, you're fully out of your business. Ads are running, people are watching the presentation, they're filling out an application, your team is getting on the phone, they're onboarding someone, and that is eventually possible, but you build it in those steps. So just do step one, document your current process. That's the only action step that I'm going to give you for this call is if you were to basically take a month off and someone was going to substitute in for you and do exactly what you do in a day, how you post your content, call to actions, DM conversations, sales conversations, try to document all of that and then be able to hand it to me if I asked you for it and be like, here, Balazs, do exactly what I'm doing. You're going to pretend to be Rebecca and I'm going to take a month off. That's the mindset that I want you to create from, and then use AI to basically speed up the process and get you leverage because it's going to tell you stuff that you don't probably even realize you're doing. And you're going to read it back to yourself, be like, I am doing that. That's cool. I like this.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd be like, wait till I go teach my team because I was having trouble like articulating that I did that. But now it just gave me this very concise, perfect little like paragraph. And I'm going to turn around and tell my people on my team, do this. And it's helping you teach your way of doing things, which is so cool. All right. Amazing. I'm excited to hear the updates of how you get this stuff kind of like into an SOP that is then going to also help you with duplication even more than I'm not sure how much duplication you have at the moment, but even more than you have now.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get to work on that.
All right. Amazing. I'm looking forward to it. And then you can update me next week on the blueprint call.
Okay.
All right. What's happening? You finally got your question answered. I don't know what was going on there. I think there was some kind of a hiccup with you being flagged for spam. So I apologize for that, but it looks like it came through. So your question was, my number one question is around authenticity. I used to work full time as a veterinary technician, am I saying that right? It feels like I'm saying it wrong. technician, but back in January, I left that job to attend our Bali community event and also start my own locum business so I could control my schedule and focus more on Enagic. My plan was to go full time with Enagic and keep locum part time, but it ended up being the other way around. Now I sometimes feel like I'm not being fully authentic because I posted about leaving my job, traveling, and stepping into freedom. But in reality, I'm working more locum shifts than I thought, even though I do have more flexibility and travel more. I worry that people might look at me and think I broke free from the 9 to 5 only because of success in the online business, which isn't the case yet, since my commissions aren't at the level where I can cut back more on the locum work. How would you handle that balance? I don't want to come across as if the business doesn't work, but I also want to stay authentic about my journey on my content and when talking to leads. But this is, I think, more real and more normal what you're actually doing. Does that make sense? Like your freedom is progress, not progression. So technically, have you made progress towards your goal of freedom? Have you taken the steps in the right direction? I think so. So that's something to be proud of, right? It's almost as if the way I talk about creating dreams is another great example of this. Like your dream might be a home, Laguna Beach, California, overlooking the ocean, cliffside, something like this. And you might live in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the country. And then you move to Laguna Beach, but you're 3 streets away from the beach, not on the beach. Are you closer to the end goal? Yes. Do you have to be disappointed that you're not in the beautiful, expensive home on the beach? No, now it's within arm's reach. Whereas you used to be in the middle of the country, nowhere near the vision and the goal. And that's kind of like what your example is reminding me of, is that you've taken a 30 to 50% step in the direction you want to go. You're not losing sight of the big vision and the big dream. You're not saying, I quit my Enagic business to do this locum thing, which by the way, I have no idea what that is. So I can't speak on it. But it's not saying like I changed my mind and now I'm pretending. It's just this is a power move in the direction of my dreams, which is actually inspiring because a lot of people have to make that step. Like if you have a disempowering job with negative coworkers, you're exhausted, you can't think, you can't build a business. Most people actually probably should consider making a job switch before quitting a job overall in general. Like if you went from a very strict 9 to 5 schedule to a flexible schedule driving Uber, just as an example, where you can control your schedule, control how many hours you work. If you have some sales call come up, you can turn the Uber thing off and just not work for that hour and be adaptable, but still make some money to pay your bills and to have money to spend on ads and stuff. That's a power move. That's not shameful or how dare you work for Uber, you're a loser or something like this. No, not at all. So I think just really owning that and then finding the hidden lesson and the meaning behind it is so powerful to be authentic. Like when I started this business, I thought it would be a straight jump into full-time online. And that may be true. Like that may have been how you felt when you started. And as things unfolded, I realized there was more to learn. The journey would take me longer than I imagined, but I shifted into doing something I also enjoy, which is this locum thing. And now it allows me the flexibility to continue making choices around my schedule, around my priorities, around the things that are important to me to continue striving towards going full time with the Enagic. And I'm on track. So the message back to you, Mr. Listener, Mr. Audience, is maybe all you need to do for now is look for a job that supports the big dream and vision where you want to go, rather than something that has a dead end to it, which is where a lot of people are stuck at, right? It's that analogy of like 2 steps back, 10 steps forward, or in your case, it's like 3 steps sideways and then 10 steps forward. So you're not actually going backwards. You're still making positive progress. So that's how I would do it, is own it. And you got to remember too, a lot of the time we think that making these changes makes us appear like a loser or a failure or something like this, but it's actually the most relatable thing because life always surprises us with unexpected things. We never have the plan exactly laid out for us. We think it's like that. Have you ever seen the meme where it says what people think success is and it's like a straight line, and then it's like entrepreneur and it's like a squiggly line up and down in different directions, and then eventually goes, that's basically, you're in the middle of that right now, right? And I think it's beautiful, and you just have to own it with that positive twist of maybe this is a sign for you to consider switching your job, that is you're making the switch specifically to support you with your freedom business, right? Because here's the thing that I always tell people: Before you found Enagic, before you realized this is what you wanted to do and the business you wanted to build, and it had the vehicle to get you the freedom and legacy that you desire, if you think back to before all of that, what made you choose the job that you had? What was the criteria or the evaluation of, is this a good idea? Should I do this? How was that correlated to where you lived? Was there a direct correlation to the city you lived in relation to the job that you had? Were you trying to hopefully have less commute or be within a budget that you could afford based on the income you were making? So if we actually take a moment to think back to why we were doing what we were doing, why we were working where we were working, why we were living where we're living, we will realize it's all connected. Then we find out about this business. We realize it makes tons of sense and it checks off all the boxes for what we desire. And we try to fit this new idea, this new concept into our old life. And it starts to not work. We realize that we're commuting too much and it's taking away from the time that we could be working on the business. We realize that, maybe there's not an active group of people. If you're building the business offline, there's not that many people around the neighborhood doing this business. And maybe if you relocated to another town, there's way more people, you'd be in more community, you'd be more helpful. So your mind starts to think like the choices that I make, where I live, what I do for work, how much time it takes me to get ready, drive to work, get home, and so on, is actually not the best combination to support me towards where I now want to go with Enagic. So even though the goal is to quit working at a job altogether, the short-term goal would be, how can I find a job that supports me further? And a great example of that is sales, like getting a job in sales, even though it's not sales Enagic, it's sales in general, or marketing, or customer service, or a type of, like I said, like an Uber or a DoorDash delivery, or something where you can clock in, clock out at your own leisure. But that's still networking. That's still meeting people. That's still having conversations. That's still practicing these skills if you want to. So you see how now all of these things are like a supportive role versus something completely hindering you and holding you back and keeping you away from what you want to do. So does this help? So now, if you have someone who's watching your content and they want to join this business, but maybe they're in one of those careers that holds them back and stuff, you might be the inspiration to give them that nudge to be like, hey, hold on a second. Why don't you just pivot to something else in the short term, start this business, do this business so you can achieve your long-term goal in 12 to 18 months, 24 months. And you will get massive respect from the audience being like, thanks for that thought, because I wasn't even thinking to do something like this. So that's a little bit about how you can frame it. Few other points is you're not faking your freedom, you're building it. So you're speaking from that truth. This is a building block, a stepping stone in the direction you want to go. The next thing is share your growth, not your guilt. This is where you're stuck at the moment, is you feel guilty for not going full time and having this like intermediary step that you're kind of hiding from. But I would recommend that you teach from this point of view and give permission not only to yourself, but to others to know that this is completely normal. And more people should actually have this approach that you've taken. It's a less risky approach of having the ambition and the confidence to go full time in your business and like living off of savings or racking up credit card debt and all these things, only to find out it didn't quite work out and you had to retreat and go back to a job, which is actually the more common scenario that I've seen, versus the more wise move, which is pivot, more flexible, more freedom, etc., and work towards the end goal. I think that's powerful. And then, yeah, the last thing is just leading with transparency, and that transparency automatically makes you authentic, which is what your question was. Helpful?